Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and now we're joined by Dr. Mohamed Zayed, the economic expert. Dr. Zayed, thank you very much for joining us.
Always.
Dr. Zayed, first of all, the President spoke to the Parliament a while ago, and he was talking about Egypt and how far is it now on the road to democracy and constitutional rule. Now, for 5 years since the 2011 revolution, we went through a whole lot of changes. It was really a roller coaster ride. But do you feel that we are on the right track? Even if we are on the right track, should we be way ahead than where we are now, or should we be actually glad? Are we being impatient? Are we being too demanding?
Well, it's a mixed bag. I think that, of course, public is always impatient. We always want things to go faster than they do. But look what we've been through over the last 5 years. We're lucky to have got this far, honestly. And I think the President's been a savior to Egypt. I can't imagine what the place would look like otherwise. That's just a personal opinion. You know, I lived through the revolution. I left to Beirut for a year, came back. But the situation was intolerable compared to what we could see even a couple of years ago. We progressed enormously. That's my positive opinion about it. We have a parliament now. Okay, Egypt has always, well, not always, but let's say in recent history, been more democratic than most of the regional Arab governments. And I think we're just right back on track like we always have been toward that goal. Now, it's not going to be easy, it's not going to be fast, things aren't going to go exactly the way we wish they would, but I think if there's a collective effort and the executive branch works with the people closely, I think we have a good chance to come out of this looking really good.
Yes. Well, that term combating terrorism and fighting terrorism in Egypt and around the world, it has been used quite frequently over the past few years. Now, if we're focusing on Egypt, now we've seen a lot of terrorist attacks taking place in the Sinai Peninsula, in Cairo, really all over the country. But how far do you feel we've been successful in actually really keeping a lid on things and really calming things down, keeping everything more or less under control? Do you feel that we've actually did a pretty good job? Do you feel that no, it could be way better, we should feel a lot safer than we were a few years ago?
Well, I can say this. As an economic expert, I'm also an investor, and years ago we bought shares in a security company, a global security company. So I have some experience in these questions personally, regionally. Now, Egypt, we're talking about an enormous landmass in a very tiny area in the northeastern Sinai that's occupied by terrorists and criminals. When you put that into perspective compared to Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, other countries, Yemen, we don't have any problem at all. It's probably more dangerous on Miami Beach right now than it is in Cairo, the tourists.
Yes. Well, Dr. Ashmawy, you've mentioned a lot of the economic problems and hardships that we're actually facing and where we really should be and what we should be doing in terms, at least in the energy sector, feeding the Egyptian person, really working on the infrastructure. But what about the mega projects? Do you feel that the mega projects is really a push for, well, for the economic life here in Egypt, but also in a way, does it have a political effect? Does it really say anything about living in a democracy? The expansion of the Suez Canal, the 1.5 million faddans that you've mentioned earlier. Also, we did a lot of the economic conference in Sharm el-Sheikh. We're also holding another conference with 3 African blocs later this month in Sharm el-Sheikh as well. Do you feel that these are actually pretty useful projects and initiatives to be involved in? Because the economic conference, even though a lot of people had a lot of high hopes and aspirations tied to it, it didn't really materialize in a lot of projects being implemented on the ground.
Before I answer this question, I would like to go to the Sinai point. I think we've been fighting terrorism for the past 5 years, especially in Sinai. So time has come to think about permanent solution. I understand that it's not a big issue for Egypt, but it's a big issue for the region. So time has come to understand really what other countries who solve a similar problem like this to team up with. We should not be shy to say Egypt is capable to handle this if we could not handle it. So we have to face it. We can team up with a couple of countries, 1, 2, 3 cameras, satellite, to really know what's going on in this area in order to solve it. We cannot say Egypt will solve it, and in the 5 years, we know that we did not really solve it from the roots. So time has come to understand that we team up to solve this worldwide, and that's very important. Now, talking about, shall we talk about the mega project or the small business? We should take some experience of India, some experience of Malaysia, the successful country of Brazil. How did they succeed with the small business people? So this 1.5 million acre that we mentioned, I don't think the government should develop it. I think small people should develop it, but we have to give them plan, a big plan. So if we're going to grow cotton or we're going to grow wheat or whatever, we should give it to maybe 10,000 people or 100,000, but we have to tell them what to do. In order not to each one to divide his land and do whatever he likes. So small business, will add up much stronger and faster, because if we talk about 1 million, if we have 5 people for each acre, we're talking about 7 million jobs. 7 million family will eat out of this. Time average 5 the family, we're talking about 35 million, almost 1/3 of the Egyptian population will eat better, will have enough jobs, the leaders will have jobs. So we have to think numbers. But if we have a mega project like malls, what we have now, like the Suez Canal, which is great, but right now the economy worldwide is not the best. It's not in the best situation. Therefore, we will find that the income of the Suez Canal right now less than the few years before, not because we did not do our jobs, it's because the situation worldwide is not as healthy, is not as good as before, and we have to accept this. Again, tourism, we should not expect that foreign currency will come unless we find different solution. We should depend on the Egyptian. Dr. Zayed said he came and he invested here. So we need Egyptian abroad to come and invest. I just found yesterday from the Lebanese ambassador, I was talking to him, that there's 12 million Lebanese live in Brazil and in South America. And there's only 3 million live in Lebanon. So we're talking about 4 times of the population abroad, but the 12 million are investing in a monthly basis at least $1,000 to renew their homes, to buy a car, to help with the economy, to do a farm, to help their parents, to pay for their treatment. So that's by itself, it's a power. We have 10% of the Egyptian population live abroad. We need to make a mega project for them, insured by international insurance company, that they believe that next day it will not be nationalized and we kick them out. So then they trust on this. Egypt is here. I want you to buy a small home, either a timeshare or a membership or whatever. Invest $1,000 per year from the Egyptian lives abroad. That's $1 billion every year coming to Egypt. So we really have to think out of the box. How can we help Egypt? How can we use all our ambassadors, the Egyptian who live abroad? How can we have from the foreign ministry, our consul, our embassies, to talk about good project in Egypt, visible project? Not that he comes to government and say, the Ministry of Investment. Now, talking about Sharm el-Sheikh, I was there last March. Let's be honest and realistic and face us. How many people paid in this? It was a giving session to the Egyptian government to government. It's not people to people. And you remember the song, people who needs people are the luckiest people. So we need people to deal with people. The 100 million Egyptian, deal with the 300 million Arabs, deal with the world, and man to man, company to company, lady to, then we're talking about really intifada, we're talking about union of the world, then can help each.
Yes, but talking about encouraging the small and medium investor, if a normal Egyptian wants to start a small business, they will have to go through a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of problems getting loans from the banks, a lot of government permits. So still, these problems are similar to
absolutely right. Now, before I ask him to make a business and borrow money from the bank, he has to learn the job. So we ask, so who's we? The non-profit organization, the media, the schools, the university. Guys, young Egyptian generation, go and work first. And don't ask for how much, and don't ask when is my holiday, and don't ask how many hours. Just work for work. When you learn how to do the job, you can rent a small place. You don't need the government. You can start by small business. You can start by borrowing from the owner of the job. He can help you for this. The non-profit organization can help them. Now, we need the bank to be a little bit flexible, because now the bank is giving interest to the Egyptian, as you know, 12% and sometimes more. So time has come that this money should work in the market, should help the young association, the young people, to do a small business. Now, the small business, we have to put it very clear and fair to them. I will never lend you money unless you have experience. This experience could be 1 year, could be 6 months, could be 2 years. It doesn't have to be a lifetime. But in order to start, you have to show me your enthusiasm. You are willing to learn. You are willing to work. I don't give him a loan and he stay at home sitting in a coffee shop playing shish bish and smoking shisha and tell me, I lost my loan. The government is no good. I don't want to blame the government. I need to blame people to people.
Yes. Well, Dr. Zayed, something that the government will actually need to work on, which is the infrastructure. Now, away from the mega projects, away from the small and medium businesses, away from the foreign investor, now, we need a lot of work on the infrastructure. We need the main problems. They really, the root of most of the problems of corruptions and everything is really the health sector, the health industry, the educational system, the sanitation, all these real fundamental basic problems and all these basic networks that need to be resolved here in Egypt. How well do you think the government is acting to actually solve these problems and better, because these things will affect the lives of all Egyptians? How do you rate the performance of the government in relation to these things?
Well, they've just got started. Now, if you look at the decrees and the 300 laws and whatnot, you can look across the whole thing and see they know what needs to be done. They see what's wrong and how to try to fix it. And it's a good start on paper. But as my colleague said, it has to be transformed on the ground between the people. There has to be a psychological and a philosophical change in the Egyptian mentality. The militia has to disappear. There's no more militia anymore. We're done with that. We've been through a hard time. People have to get out there and work for themselves, do for themselves, go through the system the best they can. I think the government's trying the best they can with what they have to work with. So far, so good. Once again, you have to be realistic on the time issue. Back a couple of weeks ago when I was with you here in the station, we talked about 1 to 3 years as being a realistic short-term time frame, and it still holds true. 36 months is nothing, but we need those 36, 40 months to get started, to get on track. And the infrastructure is critical. The free zones, the special economic zones are critical. For example, my colleague mentioned how important it is to have production and assembly and distribution and local value being created with quality control. All of these things can happen in the areas of these free zones and in industrial projects, mega projects, much easier than they can just out in the street in various areas of the city. NGOs are very important, but the government mega projects, in my opinion, will be the keys, the cornerstone. To the whole thing.
And you mentioned
Marshall Plan.
And you mentioned that one of the main pillars of actually this development is the change of culture and the ideology of the Egyptians, and actually taking the word malish out of the dictionary. But a lot of people, when they mention that, they say, well, you definitely going to have to wait for another generation at least to eliminate that sort of mentality after bettering the educational system, for instance, and we'll have to wait for a whole generation at least. Do you feel that we will have to wait? Do you think that there is a quicker solution?
No, I think we've been shocked awake, and I think there's an awakening across the youth and the older generations as well, that wait a minute, what we were doing wasn't really working so well, and our attitude maybe wasn't so great, and maybe we can't blame it on one guy that sat there for 30 years. Maybe that wasn't what was wrong. Maybe it was a lot of other things as well. So this is a shift in consciousness that I think comes from being woken up by, in this case, a revolution and many years of trauma. And I think that will speed up the process. So when you talk about a generation, let's talk about something like 8 to 12, 15 years, more realistic.
Yes. Well, Dr. Ashmawy, talking about the infrastructure now, one of the main sectors that the government has been working on is the energy sector. Now, we've seen a lot of cooperation with the Russian government in actually developing the Dabar nuclear power plant. The President mentioned the electricity shortages that we've been experiencing after the 2011 revolution, and he mentioned that we've already been succeeding in actually eliminating this problem. We're also talking about discovering the natural gas in the heart of the Mediterranean. Do you feel that this is something that would be promising the energy sector and the renewable energy sector here in Egypt? Do you think that we have been paying attention in a right industry for the time?
As always, I will go to the question before, if you allow me for a minute.
Please.
36 months or 40 months, as you both mentioned, not long time, okay, for a revolution. But did we start step one? Did we start with the education of the young people to tell them this is what to do? Corruption. Yes, last year, the chairman of Hesham mentioned that there's amount huge, I will not repeat it, I think it's 600 billion pounds of corruption. Maybe it's half of it. Now, time has come not to forget it, because this was last month's. Now we are not talking about it. We're hiding this. We should not hide anything anymore. We should put facts on the table to the Egyptian. Time has come after the revolution. Guys, this was corruption. We will stop it. And this guy who made this corruption or steal the money will pay, for himself. Time has come to face those facts, not really to mention it and back and say, okay, no, I think he was wrong because this, I owe you, you owe me, so there's 100 billion hidden. No. Time has come really to understand, to put the people on the right track and to start the 40 months. I don't mind at all if it is 50 months because you're talking about 100 million, people to be improved. We don't have the magic stick. That's number one. Number two, yes, President Sisi mentioned beautiful things has been happening in Egypt, but we need the teamwork with him, the economic people, to help him how to develop Egypt, not only the army, with all my respect to the army. Now, if he trusts only the army, I agree with he has a vision, and he is the leader of Egypt, and we chose him, so we let him lead. But this army, 500,000 soldier and officer, should have more people, which I recommend, martial law, as Dr. Zayed mentioned, but people from 16 to 30 who are sitting in the coffee shop, did not finish their education, should go and help the army. A mission for 3 years to be renewed. So those people should develop really the infrastructure that we need, because you need man work, you need manpower. Where would you get this manpower? We'll bring Chinese, we'll bring Korean? No, Egyptians are here. We're not having jobs enough for them, because if you open Al-Ahram newspaper on Friday, you'll find 10,000 jobs every Friday at least. But the Egyptians, they need to find the suitable job, how to become a manager with no experience. How much am I getting paid? Since his parents are paying him. So we need to change this concept for them through the media, NGOs, government people, that his parents, I was telling the parents who send their kids to the States, where I live in Los Angeles, if you are bringing your kids, pay them only for 1 month. And next month, if they don't work, they will not find food. And this really build people to depend on themselves, to find exactly jobs. So jobs are available all over the world. In India, even though you will find job. What to do? Cleaning cows. You could earn your income. So time has come for the Egyptian to understand, staying at home, sitting in a coffee shop, depending on your parents, living 10 people in one room, we don't have a problem of housing. Because if you calculate really how many people we have in Egypt, 100 million, you divide on 5, so we need 20 million homes all over Egypt. Do we have 20 million? We have 200 million homes. Those huge buildings are shut because people thinking that the price will increase. So time has come really to pay taxes if you have a home and you're not using it.
Yes.
No one is living in it to pay double tax.
Yes.
The government should earn money on this, because really the building will lose value. Nobody's using it, and you're not renting it, you're not selling it, and it's frozen money, and the economy is not turning around. So time has come really to get down deep to the people thinking and talk to them, not to put for them movies all the time, not to put for them songs all the time, to educate them. Time has come to put a period of time to educate people.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, definitely the developments are not just taking place domestically, but also internationally. And the Foreign Affairs file for Egypt has been quite active recently. Now, President Sisi held regional talks and discussed many issues with the former U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright and former U.S. Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs Stephen Hadley. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.